monitoring another case out of Florida this afternoon where jury selection is underway in the fatal family birthday trial. Alexander Del Toro is accused of fatally shooting his mom during an altercation with his dad after a night out celebrating his 28th birthday. Del Toro rejected a plea deal just earlier this month that would have dropped the top charge of manslaughter and given him only 10 years of probation on the 2 lesser counts. Now, he faces 10 years behind bars if he is found guilty. Opening statements are expected to begin there tomorrow, and Court TV will be there for it all. Back now to Florida for the buried in the backyard murder trial. Defendant Lori Shaver is accused of fatally shooting her estranged husband, Michael, burying him in the backyard, and then impersonating him on social media to avoid suspicion from his friends and family. Let's get you back into court now, where forensic pathologist Dr. Kyle Shaw has just taken the stand. He served as the associate medical examiner at the time of the investigation. Let's go back in.
Spell your full legal name.
Dr. Kyle Shaw, first name K-Y-L-E, last name S-H-A-W.
Please raise your right hand. I'll swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you give today shall be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Dr. Kyle Shaw.
Where do you work?
I currently work as a forensic pathologist in the upstate area of South Carolina, working for several coroner counties in that area.
What do you do for the coroner counties? What do you do on a regular basis?
So I'm a forensic pathologist. My role with the coroner offices is to review cases that are presented to me and provide my opinion of cause and manner of death. In the coroner setting, primarily that involves performing autopsies as part of that process.
Where did you work before you moved to South Carolina?
At the District 5 Medical Examiner's Office in Leesburg.
What did you do for the District 5 ME's office?
I was an associate medical examiner, again, working as a forensic pathologist with a similar role, except that I was more directly involved in some of the investigative process and supervising investigators for the office.
How long did you work here in the 5th Circuit in Leesburg, right?
In Leesburg, for a decade, 10 years.
Can you describe to the jury your educational background and training that allows you to do that job as a forensic pathologist?
I got a medical degree from the University of Sydney in Sydney, Australia. Following that, I did a 1-year clinical internship with the Southeastern Sydney Area Health Service, also in Australia. Following that, I returned to the U.S. and did the first 2 years of my general pathology residency training at the Eastern Virginia Medical School in Norfolk, Virginia. Following that, I did the final 2 years of my general pathology residency training at the University of Maryland Medical Center in Baltimore. Following that, I did a 1-year subspecialty fellowship in forensic pathology at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for the state of Maryland. And then following that, I moved down here and took a job.
You're obviously licensed to practice medicine in Florida. Are you still licensed in Florida?
I am, yes.
Can you describe for the jury generally what an autopsy is and what it involves?
In general, in most cases, an autopsy involves both an external and an internal examination. During the external examination, I look at the outside of the body and any clothing or materials that are with or on the body for evidence of natural disease or injury. I then move to the internal examination, where we examine the internal organs of the head, neck, chest, abdomen, and pelvis as part of the routine we call full autopsy. And during the internal examination, again, I'm looking for evidence of natural disease or injury and trying to correlate those findings with the external examination as well as any investigative information that we have at that time.
Can you estimate about how many autopsies you performed in your career?
On the order of over 3,500 at this point.
You mentioned earlier the term forensic pathology. What is pathology, first of all?
So pathology is a medical discipline that focuses on the study of natural disease as well as injuries, but primarily pathology is focusing on natural disease in general terms.
What is forensic pathology when compared to pathology?
So forensic pathology is a subspecialty of pathology where we focus, again, on natural disease and injury, a little bit more focus on the injury aspect of things, and then applying those findings in a legal and public health setting.
Have you performed autopsies in your career on skeletal remains?
Yes.
About how often?
I would estimate on the order of 50 or 60. Again, there's a variation or a range of decomposition changes. They range from early decomposition all the way to dry, disarticulated skeletal remains. And there's a few kind of in the middle there that are partially skeletonized that wouldn't necessarily be considered a, quote, skeleton, but somewhere on the range of 40 or 50 or so.
What do you mean by disarticulated remains?
Disarticulated basically means that's usually very late in the decomposition process where the bones have, the soft tissue holding the bones together has also decomposed, and the bones are separate. They're disarticulated. They're no longer articulated or attached to one another.
Have you performed autopsies on people who have sustained gunshot wounds to the head?
Yes.
About how many times?
Many hundreds. I'm not sure if it's to the thousands, but many hundreds.
Have you been permitted to give opinion testimony in court in the area of forensic pathology before?
Yes.
About how often?
60 or 70 in court.
I ask permission to allow this witness to provide opinion testimony in the area of forensic pathology.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, the request is granted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me direct your attention to March 10th of 2018. Did you perform an autopsy on skeletonized remains recovered in the case of State of Florida versus Lori Shaver?
Yes.
How did those remains get from the scene to your office?
They were transported by one of our forensic investigators from the scene. She was present during the excavation process, and she brought those to the office.
Am I correct? You personally were not present. Your medical examiner investigator was.
Correct.
Where is the medical examiner's office located here in the Fifth Circuit?
It's in Leesburg, so it's on 809 Pine Street in Leesburg.
Is a case number, a medical examiner case number, assigned to each and every autopsy you perform?
Yes.
Is that number unique to the individual autopsy?
Yes.
What was the autopsy number associated with this case?
2018-0428.
And is it customary, and it didn't happen in this case, that law enforcement was present during the autopsy?
Yes.
Were photographs taken during the course of your autopsy?
Yes.
Showing you has been marked as State's Exhibit S for identification. Can you take a look at these images and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes. These are images, it's photographs as well as an x-ray, images that were taken at the medical examiner's office during the course of this examination. Not all on the initial day of autopsy, some are later.
Do those fairly accurately depict the skeletonized remains as well as some of the evidence that was packaged and things like that?
Yes.
This time, State would move S as in Sam into evidence as 19, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection. Without objection.
Let me bring in federal trial attorney Alexis Rosenberg. Alexis, one of the things I noticed, going through the qualifications and what he does is not unusual. We know he performed the autopsy, and then he will, I'm sure, also testify as to the cause and the manner of death. But he did say law enforcement was present during the autopsy. We don't always see that. Why do you think perhaps that's an important point, or is it?
Based on the fact of how they found this body and the circumstances that the police already knew leading up to them finding the body, I think that they already knew there was going to be a case related to this. It could be very possible that even the state attorney may have been in the room as well under the circumstances.
And what do you think about what type of evidence you can or cannot find when we know he disappeared October 7th of 2015? That's the last time he was seen or heard from. And then in 2018, his body was found under the cement slab. 3 years, that's a lot of time for the decomposition, for the autopsy not to have a lot to examine.
Judge Ashley, it really is. I mean, we're hearing the word skeleton. So there's not going to be a lot. It's going to be interesting as to exactly what they're able to get out of this examination and what's going to come out here.
Yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. You'll stay with us. Thank you for that. We do need to squeeze in a break. When we come back, we're going to get you back into court for more of the Buried in the Backyard murder trial. Stay tuned.